This is a SACNAS Science Video Podcast, exploring the lives and research of SACNAS scientists. I'm Cassandra Brooks. Timberley Roane, Associate Professor of Integrated Biology at the University of Colorado, Denver, loves everything about microbes. From the way that they keep our bodies healthy to the way that they clean up a toxic waste site. She became fascinated with them in high school when she visited a sewage treatment plant.
And I thought at the time that it was so incredible that these organisms that we can't see can actually take wastewater, the stuff we flush down the toilet, and actually clean it up to levels that would be considered drinking water standards, meeting drinking water standards. And as a high school student, I thought that was just amazing.
From there, the fascination continued. She realized microbes could be used to clean up our environmental messes, which is now the primary focus of her research.
The main area of our research in my lab program is to look at how microorganisms can respond to environmental stressors. And by environmental stressors, we primarily look at metallic-based chemicals. So metals associated with acid mine drainage. So acid mine drainage is where basically the ore that is pulled out of a mine, sometimes dug out of the ground or pulled out of a mountain, when it's exposed to water and oxygen, you have oxidation reactions that go on. So now with that metal ore, in its normal environment, it's not exposed to oxygen. When we pull it out of the ground and now expose it to oxygen, it oxidizes, and in the process of doing that, it can create acid. And as acid is produced, that further dissolves the ore, and as the ore dissolves, it ends up releasing the metals. So that's how the metals become freed in the first place. But all of the waste material that can be generated from mining, the material that we can no longer harvest any high concentrations of metals from, are usually left exposed to air and to water. And so we end up forming acid mine drainage, which is a very prevalent problem out in the western U.S.
These metals left behind will persist indefinitely in their toxic form, but in the last 2 decades, researchers found that microbes naturally grow in these sites and slowly detoxify the metals back into their naturally occurring, less harmful forms. Timberley and her team worked to facilitate the growth of these microbes to help detoxify the sites on a larger scale.
So, when in high school microbes first grabbed your heart and mind, have you had other moments in your career where you're just totally fascinated by something you learned that these microbes do?
Oh, I love everything there is about microbiology. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I find all microorganisms. I mean, microorganisms as a whole include the bacteria and the viruses, the protozoans, and the fungi and the algae. And I find them all fascinating. And what's really, really incredible about the group microorganisms as a whole is that it turns out that all these different groups of organisms actually work together to form complex communities of microorganisms. And that's really where some of the forefront in microbiology is not just looking at individual species anymore, not individual bacteria and individual algae, but looking at entire communities of microorganisms, that it turns out that they work together much like our own community does, and they have a division of labor where different organisms are taking care of different jobs within that community to form a healthy and normal functioning community. And that's one of the interesting things that we're finding with the human flora, is that we too have a very complex microbial community associated with our bodies, on our skin and in our guts and in our mouths.
So it's like it's a whole ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Or in your armpit. Or
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
It is estimated to be easily in the thousands of different species that help compose us. And as a matter of fact, we think that our bodies include more microbial cells than they do human cells. I love what I do, and microbiology influences every aspect of our lives. I mean, we can't get away from it. And so I embrace it, and I love the fact that organisms are all around us, in us and on us, and that they are out there help sustaining our quality of life and our health, and majority of them are working with us and for us. And that's the level of understanding that I want to have. I want to figure out how we can live with these organisms and truly appreciate their capabilities and their abilities.
With the SACNAS Science Video Podcast, I'm Cassandra Brooks.